Welcome back, guys. This is Jeremy again. Today this is part 3 of my video series of video tutorials for flexible urban modeling, and today we're gonna start looking at um, expanding our range of flexibility in designing uh, within 3ds Max. It's really powerful in creating organic forms, and we're going to use this retrofuturistic example as a way of starting to model a simple space shuttle pod, mainly trying to get the oblong and cylindrical shapes that the smooth edges that this generates, and create a retrofuturistic aesthetic for utopian cities in the future. So we're going to mainly be looking at organic form, further geometry manipulation, and looking at the power of using copy instances and references in making our workflow a little bit easier. So what we'll try to achieve is something similar to this, where we're trying to model mainly this element, and as well as the entire shaft that is holding it up. So let's start by resetting the scene. Yes, okay, so we'll start by creating the sphere. I'm guessing it's about 20 meters long, and it's not a sphere, so we're gonna start. Okay, we'll start by scaling it to create that oblong shape that you see here, kind of like an egg, like a really long egg. And then the next step would be to have a little bit better control of the segments. So just kind of reducing it, and in order for you guys to see it, you're gonna have to turn on edge faces. We don't need that many, and we'll talk a little bit about it later as we progress down. So alright, 10 seems to be fine. Alright, cool. So and then now we want to make the punctures through here. So what we'll have to do is to select a polygon through edit poly, just selecting this and this. Actually, this is really narrow, so what we'll do is we'll select this first, and we'll use we'll just select all around it, and then we're just going to scale it down vertically. Okay. Alright, so that we get this shape. At this point, we don't really have to worry about the smooth shape, as we're going to deal with that a little bit later, but we just want to get the overall shape correct. Also, let's create a reference for it, so that we have one that's much simpler and one that's we're going to model, and I'm going to demonstrate how that actually affects it. So on this, we're going to use Turbo Smooth, and now we have that really tapered form that we want. And now, because that's a reference, anything below this is going to change in code. This is going to be similar, but anything that happens above here is going to be independent of each other. So you start to notice that if I take this off, we're going to start to see holes popping up here. Pretty cool. Alright, the hole seems to be bigger in the picture, so we're going to take this away as well. And now we have this hole. So from the front. Pretty cool. So this is the instance, this is the reference, And this is not the turbo smooth is not affected on this because for this it's above this white line, so make sure that turbo smooth is above the white line, and therefore we can start to model a little bit better. Alright, cool. So there's also openings on the top for the radar dish, as well as what I assume is a circulation shaft down to the external deck. So we're going to create two holes, one on the above, one on below. So we're going to come back to this. What we'll do is we'll create another ring in here so that we can take away a hole. So use the loop. Alright, maybe not loop, just use the ring. Alright, let's skip this. Alright, we'll just have to do that individually. And then clicking connect, you can see that we just made a hole on the top. So from here we're gonna do the same thing, and then I'm gonna delete it. There we go, we have the opening for the top. Let's do the same for the bottom. We're gonna click edge in order to select this. I'm gonna try loop again. No, it doesn't work that way, so just holding on to control, selecting all of this, then clicking on connect, then again just repeating the same process, just deleting the hole. And there we go, we have an opening for the top, and the bottom shown here. It's kind of extending outwards a bit, so we're going to get that detail as well. So let's go back to this. We're going to select loop this time. Yep, that works. And for this as well, we're going to select loop. Alright, now we're going to push it upwards. So alright, let's do that individually instead. Alright, we're going to push this up. I'm going to pull it up. Alright, we're going to extrude this a little bit more to get a little bit more smoother connection. So what we'll do is we'll hold down the shift button together with this. There we go. Then I'm going to create this new ring on the external. Then we can pull it up and let's see the difference it makes. Alright, looks pretty similar. Pretty happy with that. Maybe a little bit higher. Cool. So we're getting that same tapering effect as we can see here. So just repeating the same process. So again, just with this selecting uniform scale, we're going to hold down the shift and then dragging it in, followed by pulling downwards this time. We're going to see it. So we get these smooth edges along it. Cool. So we have the outer shell, and it appears to have a little bit of thickness as well as a platform. Alright, we'll try to get that in. What we'll do is select this. Now we're going to do a shell. Alright, we'll do it on this instead. So shell, because we want to keep this as a primary designing base, and then this is for the more detailed version of it. So we're going to select shell. So now we're gonna get a chassis for the pod. You can see, as you can see here, there is a thickness of 1 meter. That's a bit too much, so maybe half of it. Cool. So we got half the chassis. Everything seems to look fine. Alright. Now we want to create a platform for it. So what we'll do here as well is alright, so just tree here. We're gonna use edit poly. What we want to get is this middle ring. So again, edge loop all around it. Make sure it's all around it, and then we're gonna create a shape, a new shape that is just the ring. Yep. All right, and then we're gonna use. All right, make sure you weld it so that it's joined, and then we're gonna click extrude for about half a meter. So, and then shrink it accordingly. Now we've got a floor slab. The last part that we're gonna start modeling is a circulatory element, and perhaps the deck as well. So same thing. So this is slightly smaller than this, so we're going to repeat again the same process, selecting this loop, and then we're going to create a shape, and we're going to extrude it, and then okay, perhaps 80 meters might seem, yep, 80 meters is a bit too much, so we're going to just reduce it. Oops. So make sure you select the correct shape. We can even change the color just to make the modeling process a little bit easier. So just pull it down. Looks okay. Now here we're gonna get another smoother surface. So what we can do, alright, we'll use edit poly again. Select the line, and then loop it, or ring it, sorry. And then we're gonna make a line across the whole thing. Alright, so we're just gonna push it down. Yeah, alright, and so we can take the cap off both ends. Alright, now we're gonna then spread this outwards. Yeah, something like this. Okay, this can go a little bit higher. And then followed again by turbo smoothing it. If one iteration isn't enough, try two. It's gonna get smoother. What we can also start to do is by this, at the moment it's not very obvious, so what we can do is go back down to edit poly, shift this up, a little bit, and then check this again. Cool. So we have returned off edge faces. pretty smooth form that runs all the way down into the deck. Alright, now we can then model the deck. So we're gonna use this again, and now we're gonna do a copy instead of a reference. I'll just hold on shift, create a copy because we don't want it to be related, and then we're gonna align it with this. So the minimum, the Z position, and the minimum. So as you can see, it's gonna be aligned here. Whoops. So we want to align it to the center as well. So align. Yep. So we have it in the center. It looks like it's much thicker to allow the landings. So we're just gonna increase the thickness of it, and also just the size of it. So let's make sure the thickness is 2. Alright, cool. Now we have that. Let's check the front again. Oh, seems to be another frame supporting it. So what we can do is we can use this again, dragging it down, making a copy, and then rotating it 90 degrees in Y. In the X direction. No? In the Z direction. Alright, so again, let's align it to this one, but just the maximum. Yep. So it's touching this and this. What we'll do is we'll go back to edit poly. Edge faces. So this one seems to be much wider. So we'll get this, create a loop. And then have a look at what it creates. I'm fine with that. So, alright, so this seems to be okay. Everything looks okay. Oh no. So we have to align this with this. What we'll do is just align with this one. We can do it manually as well when it gets too complex. Alright, seems to be fine. So there we go. We have a space shuttle that is highly similar to this. And let's get into more detail with this. Um, we can even create all these cylindrical shapes that make up parts of it inside. Basically the mechanical systems, perhaps gas tanks and fuel systems, as well as hydraulic and mechanical systems. So what we'll do is now go to extended primitives, select oil tank, and alright, obviously the scale isn't right, so what we'll do is so this is for this, 5 by 5, 20. Looks about right, with the cap height of 2.5 meters. So cool. So we got the gas tank, turn on wireframe, so that we can now shift it inside the pod. So now it sits inside. And then using copy again, I believe that needs to be more than that, so we're gonna make a copy of 2, so we can have like 3 of it sitting inside. Holding down shift again just to shift it to the center, just placing them there. So we got 1, and then perhaps another system. We can also use capsule. Radius, again, it's too big. Perhaps for a different type chemical. So this one could be larger, and then they could sit above each other. Just 1. So now we have a control system with the mechanical system behind. We can also create the sleeping pod. So what I assume this is the command deck. This could be the living quarters. So whoops, so we just lost it. So select all of it, just click on this to get back to where we were. Alright, so let's create the sleeping pods for them. Standard primitive sphere. Oh, it was a bit too big. So based on our body height, just pull it apart, long one, so they can fit all the systems as part of it. And as you can see, we need again the space for entry. So I'm gonna repeat the same process, but we're not gonna delete it this time. So just using edit poly, well, just using edit poly. And then this time, instead of deleting it, we're going to use detach. Yep. So if we click on this, this has become a separate entity. And if we change the color, it's going to be more obvious. So this is our sleeping pod. We're going to turbo smooth it too, just to give it a nice rounded edge. just enough for someone to live inside. And then finally shelling it. That's a bit too much, so just shell it. And there we go. Alright, so now that we have one, the crew needs multiple of it, so again we're gonna just copy. I'm gonna make 3 copies of it, and then we're gonna shift it in. And just to make, because these are copies, what we'll do is in order for us to select it all together, we're gonna call this pods, sleeping pods. And then in the future, when we click on it, it's just much easier to go back to it. And then we're going to shift it in. And just the instance of it. We're going to have 6 crews operating on the ship. And finally, you want to create the head as well as the vehicle. So we're just going to run through the same process of modeling this, and using the sphere. Again, we're going to align it to this. Okay. We're going to eyeball this. So generating that. And pulling this here to create the hull of the ship. Just an approximate length and distance will do, and then we can create, it's not that big, it's a bit smaller. Cool, so we have the hull. Now we're gonna create something to chip away this part. So we're gonna create a box, holding down shift. And then creating a box, we can then now choose 40. Aligning with this again. And making sure that once we plane it, it'll still be fine. So now we want just to adjust. We want to just adjust how much we can plane from it. Just making sure that covers most of it. And alright, so now we're gonna start planning on how we want to plane it. So from height segments, we're gonna create 2, and then using edit poly, we're gonna shift this manually for now. So we're going to create that angle that we saw here, and also a steeper angle down here, just to get that aerodynamic shape that space shuttles have. Now we can then chip away that form by using a compound modifier, compound objects, clicking on propylene. So with the previous form selected, actually we need to select this one, propylene, and then we're going to use a copy and pick this shape. There we go. So we have a hull that is resembling this. Yep. And then we're going to edit poly and delete that part. Same process, we're going to use turbo smooth followed by shell. I believe the hull needs to be more structurally rigid, and therefore it's a bit more thicker on the front than this. And finally, we got a hull of the ship, which I assume the engines are there. And then we're gonna have a vehicle, or manned vehicle. That will be the last thing we're gonna be modeling today. So just with a sphere, too big again. So this is wider so that two people can sit in it, and taller on the top. So what we'll do is just to elongate the top, just by dragging, pushing this down, and then dragging this up. So more space on the bottom for the legs, and more generous space for the upper body. Yep, seems about right. And then now what we'll do is again just make the windows by deleting it, followed by turbo smooth. And then we're going to create a cockpit similar to that one, and then create a shell for it. And there we go. We have a organic shaped vehicle. Aligning it with this. Okay, so and then shift this up so that kind of like a landing pad for it. And oops, shifting it up so that it sits right on top of the landing pad. And there we go. We have a spaceship, space shuttle, and at this stage we can just delete this. That should be fine. So we have a space shuttle with sleeping pods, a vehicle, and some really cool structure for it. Thanks for watching, and that's all for now.